you have this feeling I've never felt before except in Chile, that you're inside the sky, not below the sky.
I'm very excited today to be speaking with Alison McAlpine, the director and visionary behind Perfectly A Strangeness. Alison, thank you so much for the time. I appreciate this
Well,
very
thank
much.
you.
This is a beautiful, beautiful short film. What inspired the idea of for Perfectly A Strangeness?
Uh, well, a few things in special. I guess the first was I was compelled to deliver a short in the same region that I had I did a feature film, a feature doc, sorry, in Chile in that same area, and I had to deliver short. So I thought, yeah, I just thought, well, what could I do that would really yeah, be really exciting for me, deeply exciting because it takes that kind of excitement to stay with a film. I'd never done a short before. Anyway, so there were many, many starting points I could tell you about, but I really always go back to my first experiences in a place to kind of, I guess, to like a barometer of can I stay with this film? Can I stay, because it's such a mad journey. Anyway, so my one of my first experiences was in La Silla, where we filmed with the donkeys. There were many. We filmed when I was shooting Cielo. There were many donkeys, sometimes a dozen donkeys and more, and they were just wandering around the observatory amongst the telescopes, and this juxtaposition of donkeys and these technological beasts, so to speak, was fascinating to me. So I asked, how do they see this world? And then, of course, there was exploration of lenses to approximate their near panoramic vision, anamorphic lenses, and talking to scientists, and then filming their eyes and discovering that some of them are very colorful, etc. So that was one starting point of this film. I could go on.
Feel free. I'm fascinated with this too, with it being told through the lens of the donkeys. And this is fascinating to me. You really trying to step into their sense of vision
Yeah.
is wild to me. So what was that like taking you into that world, and why was that so interesting for you to explore?
I think um, I'm not sure why. I mean, I guess I went also, maybe I will continue about a starting point. It might give you more of a context, but wasn't that was one starting point. The other was just my first experience in an observatory. It's when I arrived that observatory during the afternoon, and all the scientists were asleep, which is normal because they work all night, and the staff, and it felt abandoned. This particular observatory is kind of half abandoned anyway, and there was just nobody about, and yet these big metallic domes, which were all covered up, they were making sounds and they were sort of purring and they felt alive somehow. And then I remembered, and then I of course stayed that night in the observatory and watched these domes open to the skies, to the heavens, so to speak, and chase the stars. And I thought of this, um, this tale, this myth that I heard of when I was in Scotland doing my first film, which was in the Ring of Brodker. These big stones that are like 3 or 4 times as big as human. At midnight, they get up and they kind of transform and dance, and they dance all night. And then at
Hmm.
dawn, when the sun comes up again, they become stones. And there was this mythic element to me in the observatories because these big metallic giants, they're asleep by day and then they open to their eyes to the universe, and then they move and dance. Of course, I push that, but they move and dance all night chasing the stars, and then they close again their eyes during the day. So there was a number of my first experiences in that recollection, and then objective of telling a tale, without dialogue. They were all coming together, and so I wrote a treatment. So in 4 movements, basically, I wanted to tell a tall tale that felt, yeah, uncontrived and hopefully inspired reflection and was a really a conversation between these donkeys and the observatory in visuals and sound. I don't know if that answers your question.
Well, certainly. I mean, but it's one of the things I did really love about this film is that tension between natural world and technology.
Right,
There's a real sense of well, it's interesting because there is that sense that life is outside,
right,
but then we see inside and things are in motion and there's movement and there's tension and it's not because the first half of this film it's almost unsettling. It's so quiet
right.
in a beautiful way. And I would love to hear in your mind, like, what do you take away from an experience like that of sitting within that tension of natural life and this technological world?
How do I experience it? You mean
Yeah.
just as, yeah. Um, I guess it is fascinating. I mean, it's, if you must go to that part of the world, it's extraordinarily beautiful and it's on so many levels. But it is, I found it every night, like every time I've been privileged enough to stay in an observatory, there is that tension because I'm going inside and outside. Like, I guess what I'm trying to answer is that outside, you have this feeling I've never felt before, except in Chile, that you're inside the sky, not below the sky. That you can have this because of the vividness of the night sky, the beauty of it, and then there's something about the silence because it's an absence of sound that there. And then there's just yeah, I just felt this almost like the donkeys must feel with their hooves, this sense of you're sort of deep into this, your feet are on the earth but you're also inside this universe. And which is, the play on the title of the film, Perfectly a Strangeness, that you're discovering the world for the first time, and then you go into these big huge billion-dollar often telescopes, etc., and, with their different sounds of nitrogen pumping and whatnot, and their different instruments for reading the stars, and it's and all the control rooms with their computers, and it's that tension between and you feel this kind of guts of the observatory, and the contrast is huge. I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, but it's just a wonderful, yeah, it's a fascinating contrast between that technological point of view, or how some of the scientists, they never even go outside, which is fine, but it's their work. But anyway, but I also wanted to create in the film the music is for me kind of the soul of the observatory. I wasn't creating, there's no observatory sounds we're using. So there was sort of it's all hurdy-gurdy, tuba, pianette, gamelan strips. And so basically, I guess what I'm trying to say, I just painted a kind of technological, cold, maybe picture of inside. But I wanted also that we, we wanted to create, sort of embody an imaginative sonic world and visual world for these observatories that was different than what you normally get presented.
Yeah, that it's fascinating because I think, when you see this, it's very cold. No, sorry, not the world, but I'm talking about the observatories themselves. Very cold, methodical, um, and outside, it's even in the stillness of the desert,
Mm,
it feels like life is happening.
mm,
And I love this. I had not considered it the way that you described it there, where you're talking about the observatories being an eye, because you hold that intention as well with the observatory and the eyes of the donkey
right,
of how we see the world
right.
and how that's shaped by how our experience of the world shapes our vision, if you will.
Mm, yes.
It's there's something almost mystical about this experience. It's a beautiful, beautiful piece.
Thank
Um, I feel that given where we're at in this conversation, it feels wrong to ask this, but what was it like working with the donkeys, which is something I was interested in because
you.
they are the soul of this film.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, I love donkeys, and they were mostly like the white one, Palomo. It's just in particular was he's so affectionate. So, and they were older donkeys, and so they were mostly easy to deal with. We had one kind of rebel donkey, so it was a challenge at times for sure because although I wanted them to go from this desert that we're not labeling as where we are and discover this observatory. So, it was just really trial and error. We had to, and sometimes they didn't want to go to the observatory. we had to, so we just, and then finally they did. So it was many takes really, where we were trying to get them to go. I mean, we were trying to be open to, of course, that we weren't trying to get them to go on this particular route. That would have been crazy, right? But we were trying to get them up the hill because of the light in a particular place and get them in the observatory. And so, yeah, there were times where it was just hard, and we had to be patient, or we fed them too much. And so then if we fed them too much, they didn't really want to move. And, it was a lot of trial and error because we didn't have a professional, it was a tiny crew. And I didn't have a professional donkey trainer or whatever they call them, wrangler or something. We didn't have that. We had a Chileno del Campo, a guy that grew up with some donkeys, but had never worked on a film before and was more interested really looking at a cell phone most of the time. So it was, and he was sometimes really great because when the donkeys escaped, he was brilliant at finding them. Um, but yeah, it was a lot of trial and error. And then, of course, there was a lot when we got them into the observatory. We really, well, and even below, of course, we were just trying to be open to what they did because they often did things with their ears, or they rolled about, or they did things that we liked, or they'd stop and they'd be very alert. And so it was a combination of quote directing them and just being with them.
Um, yeah, it's funny how they're so captivating for just being themselves.
Yeah.
This may seem like an odd question, um, but I was curious from people who, if people who were involved or worked with the observatory had seen the film and what they felt about it and what it captured their experience, because there's no human beings in this film, but
Right.
as you said, there were people that are working there. I was wondering what their reaction and the impact of a film like this is on them, what they've said, if anything.
Well, it's about in Chile. They're about to show the film at the ISO Observatory, and many people helped me on this film. So that from that observatory, because I did a lot of the time lapses on my own, for instance, and I'm not very practical, and it was freezing in winter, and so I'd come and I'd done something to my tripod, during the night, and they would help me. And so many people basically helped. And then we were shooting, they helped by turning the telescopes what way we wanted them to turn, and all those kind of things. So I wish I could be there, but in March, basically around the Oscars, they're going to show it, and they have a little cinema in that tiny cinema in that observatory. So it'll be fun to hear what people think. And but I know one the head of the observatory, the kind of man who invited us into Lucia, he it was really fun to hear his reaction because he works there like for years and years and years, and he was captivated. So I was quite honored because I thought, he's you know, but he and so that was fun to hear. And there was this scientist she works at the American Museum of Natural History in New York, and she observes there all the time. And I was really surprised by it. It was just a one-line email, but she said, you captured it, the observatory beautifully. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. I don't, it's kind of a different take, right, with the donkeys. So there was something about it. And one thing to mention maybe for that is that for some reason, when we shot a lot of the interior shots at an observatory further north called Paranal, and all those shots of the carts and the spectrographs moving and these colorful prism things, and even the laser putting a camera within the telescope to get the laser up above. All those shots, I'm not sure about the laser one actually, but the other ones, those instruments had never been filmed before. So I felt incredibly honored that because it's our human breath, our temperature, all that affects the observations of the scientists. So for some reason, and this was another wonderful head of that observatory, they gave us this extraordinary access and privileges in this, more out of the box film. I think I just had scientists, kind of poets that were, or artists, whatever you want to call them, who loved cinema, that were supportive.
I love that. That's beautiful. And speaking of honors, I haven't formally congratulated you too on
Oh,
your Oscar nomination for this film. It's well deserved.
thank you.
Yeah. And absolutely. I mean, what was that like when you first heard the news of that? It must have been a whirlwind.
Yeah, it was such an amazing, wild, and wonderful surprise, Um, what was it like? I mean, I was talking to in Zoom. We were watching together the results. My editor, Chilean editor. So we were talking, many miles away because I'm in Montreal and she's in Santiago. And yeah, we jumped up and down like little kids because, it's the out of the box kind of film in the competition, I think. And it's just an honor that, yeah, that it's being nominated. So
Well, honestly, it is a joy to speak with you, and I appreciate this so much. The film is beautiful. Perfectly a Strangeness, of course, is nominated for Best Documentary Short Subject this year's Academy Awards. And Allison, it has been an honor chatting with you. Thank you so much for the time. I appreciate it.
thank you very much. Enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.
Thank you. Bye bye.